In this video, we are going to talk about static keyword in C#. Okay, in order to tell you exactly what is static keyword, what purpose it is used for, let's first of all start with an example. Say in our existing application, I'm declaring a data member or field bonus of type decimal. And what is this field for? Practically what I'm thinking is every employee in your organization receives an year-end bonus after completion of a year, right? And this bonus amount is same for all the employees. It doesn't differ from employee to employee. The value is same. Unlike employee name, employee ID, basic DHRA, which might vary. The project name might vary, might be same. Okay, total salary obviously will vary, birth year will vary, but this particular field value does not vary across the employee instances. So if now I modify my constructor and say that every time you create an instance, you pass the value for bonus for that employee instance, it does not also make sense because this value is going to be same. So every time you create an instance, you are going to pass the same value, isn't it? Right. So I'm going to delete it first of all, and I will tell you then how we are going to assign the value to it, how it makes sense to assign the value. Now, let me think once again. This bonus being common amongst all the instances, I do not want separate memory block allocation as part of every instance. As part of every instance, what will happen? Memory block for employee name, ID, basic pay, DFA, HRA, project name, total salary, birth year, age will be done in memory, right? But not for constant. Okay. Ditto same, I wanted quite like constant facility where no memory block is allocated for bonus, as because it does not make sense to store the same value for the same field in each and every instance separately, which is a wastage of memory. So what I want is that tell C# runtime that do not allocate memory block for this bonus data member as part of any instance, rather than in runtime store this bonus value separately out of every instance. Okay. And then the employee instances still can access that bonus as if every instance will be linked to that common memory location inside the runtime. So if you want to tell these to runtime, you have to declare the data member with static keyword. Now what will happen? C# runtime will not allocate any memory block for bonus as part of every instance. Rather, it will create a memory block where bonus value will be stored even before any instance has been created. Starting, this will be done only for the very first time when an employee instance is being created. At that point of time, first runtime will allocate a memory block somewhere in the runtime for this bonus data member. Then the actual instance will be created, and as part of that instance, these selected data members and their values will be stored, and that instance will be linked with this bonus memory block, okay, to access the value. Say for example, you want to access this bonus to make it part of salary calculation. So here you can access it without using this keyword because officially it's not part of any instance. So we do not use the current instance reference variable this here, okay, this keyword here. So you can include it, though it is not a static method, it's a non-static, but still every class instance has access to that static data member, which is not part of the class instance memory allocation right now. So this is what static does to any data. It makes it shareable among all the instances, or shared among all the instances of employee, correct? Now what we are going to talk about is how we want this value to be assigned. Question, it doesn't make sense to pass it via constructor again and again, correct? Then you have option. Obviously you can declare a data member, you can declare a property here which is public and static property, which again you need not to have an instance to access this property, and decimal bonus, and there is a set accessor where you can assign bonus to some kind of value passed from outside of the class, and then get accessor which returns this bonus value also, right? So you can create your property in this way by using static keyword. Now how you are going to access it? Say even before I can create any instance of this class, I can just use the class name dot the static property bonus to assign some kind of value over there, right? So in order to access static member, you don't need an instance variable of the class because it has nothing to do with the class instance at the very first hand itself. So this bonus can be accessed commonly, not as part of any instance, though every instance has access to it, as you can see in the calculate salary. So not via reference variable, via class name we access it, correct? Now this gives you a chance to assign the bonus value whenever you want, but there is another specific way to assign this kind of static data member, and that is via something called static constructor. Being a constructor, the name will be same as that of the class, okay, but then has to be declared with a static keyword, and there is a rule that you cannot also declare it with any kind of access specifier. By default it's kind of a private. This kind of constructor is used only to assign, as I said, only to assign static data members. So for example, I here assign static value, a value 2000 to the static data member bonus. Now this static constructor is a bit peculiar. First of all, you do not call it explicitly, unlike this default or the parameters constructor. Then this constructor gets invoked implicitly. Whenever you try to create an instance of a class by calling this parameterized or default constructor, maybe internally first this static employee constructor will be called, and then either the default or the parameterized, whichever one you have called, will be executed. Okay. Say, in order to prove that, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to put a console.write line here and say this is static constructor and bonus value is, so we are going to concatenate here bonus, right? Now let's see, we are going to create an instance by using this constructor, and this static constructor is expected to be executed even before this is completely executed. That means as soon as you call this first class, in the meantime, runtime will be invoking this constructor, and then this constructor will be finally executed. As for example, here this object that we are trying to create by calling the parameters constructor, we can see it in this line. In the meantime, I'm going to comment this property accessing a line over there and run this application. As you can see over there, static constructor has been implicitly executed, and it has been executed even before the parameters constructor has been executed. To prove that again, let me put a console.write line here, say that it is parameterized constructor, right, like this way. Okay, so now once again run this application. As you can see, first the static constructor has been called, and then parameterized constructor has been called. Practically you call parameterized constructor, which internally made a call to the static constructor, and then rest of the parameterized constructor got invoked. So even before you can create an instance, the static value is set. Now, is it called every time an instance is created? Not exactly. It is called only when the very first instance is created in the application. So throughout the application, wherever you create now employee instance, only one time this static constructor will be executed, and that is the very first time you create an instance. As for example, let me create one more object here. So I'm going to copy and paste this code one more time and make changes. Say for example, this is another employee, and this particular part where I want to use employee, this another employee is going to be used here. Is, let me make the changes. And there goes one more place. This is another place. Hopefully I have not forgotten any other place, but this is how it looks like right now. Let me run this application now and check how many times this constructor has been executed. In the meantime, also let me change some values like Sunil here, and ID is 101, suppose. So let me run this application and have a look at it. Parameters constructor for two different instances has been called twice, whereas the static constructor has been called only once, isn't it? So no matter how many instances you do create, static constructor is executed only once, as because the purpose of the static constructor is to assign a value to a static data member which has nothing to do with any instance, and its memory block in the runtime is separate from the instance memory block, correct? So it is initialized first, and then actual instances are created which have now access to that bonus memory block and its value inside the class. But from outside the class, you are never going to access it via the instance variable name, always via the class name, correct? Like if you would like to print this employee bonus, so go ahead, console.writeLine, you can see employee.bonus will return you what is the bonus value for each and every employee, and that is 2000. Makes sense, isn't it? So you can see that a static constructor is the one which is internally executed or implicitly executed by runtime whenever you call a constructor, but only for the very first time. That means if you create millions of objects only for the very first time, this constructor will be executed and the common value will be set. There is no need of repeated value setting, isn't it? That's a good thing. But there are certain rules about static constructor, and that is you should never declare it with any kind of access specifier. You should not even declare it manually with private static constructor as such, as because that gives me an option that I can also write public, etc. But static constructors are always invoked implicitly and internally, so they should not be declared with any kind of access specifier. Okay, not even public, not even private. And then it cannot be parameterized also, as no one is going to call it from outside. There is no question of parameterizing it and passing different number of arguments, right? Unlike these other constructors, the non-static constructor, which can be parameterized or parameterless. Okay, so right now what is going to happen is that we are going to now look at the static property, and you can see that property has been declared with static keyword, and there is a set and get accessor over there using which you can set the value. But right now I'm going to comment it as it's not necessary, since I am doing the job via static constructor, isn't it? So property can be static, constructor can be static, also method can be static, though I didn't declare any kind of static method in this scope right now. Also you can declare a method with static keyword. That means that method has nothing to do with a particular instance, isn't it? That's all. This is what is static keyword. Remember always the static keyword with a data member, with a constructor, with any kind of method or property makes this a shared member amongst the instances of that class.